Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
I never thought Sunday dinner at my childhood home would become the moment that shattered my family forever. There I sat with my wife Sarah and our twin sons Marcus and Tyler across from my mother Eleanor, father Robert and sister Catherine with her husband David, and daughter Jessica. When Catherine announced Jessica got into Stanford, Mom suddenly declared they had set aside $200,000 for Catherine's kids' education, but told me my boys should learn trades from YouTube videos instead of wasting money on degrees. The room went silent until 16-year-old Marcus looked at me with tears in his eyes and whispered, "So Grandma thinks we're jokes, Dad." The drive home from that dinner felt like traveling through a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, her hand reaching back to comfort our devastated twins in the back seat. Marcus, our academic achiever with his 4.2 GPA and dreams of becoming an aerospace engineer, had broken down completely in the car. His shoulders shook with silent sobs as he stared out the window at the passing streetlights. Tyler, our creative son who planned to study film production, had gone completely silent. His jaw clenched tight with anger I had never seen in his 15-year-old face before. "Dad, I don't understand." Marcus finally spoke, his voice cracking with emotion. "I have the highest grades in my class. I volunteer at the Science Museum every weekend. I've never gotten in trouble. What did I do wrong?" Sarah turned around to face our boys, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You did nothing wrong, sweetheart. Sometimes adults make unfair decisions that have nothing to do with your worth or abilities. But I knew this went deeper than unfair decisions." As I pulled into our driveway, memories flooded back of my relationship with Eleanor throughout my 38 years of life. I'd always assumed I was the favored child as the older son. She had praised my academic achievements, celebrated when I graduated college, and seemed proud when I built my successful financial planning business from nothing. Yet now I realized that this wasn't the first time she had shown preferential treatment toward Catherine. When Catherine turned 16, Eleanor bought her a brand new red convertible with a giant bow on top. When I turned 16 2 years earlier, I received a used bicycle from a garage sale with mismatched handle grips. Eleanor always had explanations back then. Catherine needed reliable transportation for her after-school activities. I was more responsible and could appreciate the value of earning things myself. Looking back now, I saw the pattern of favoritism that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. That night after we put the boys to bed, I sat in my home office reviewing our family finances. Sarah brought me a cup of coffee and settled into the chair across from my desk, her expression thoughtful and concerned. "Jason, there's something you need to consider," she said gently. "Remember 5 years ago when your parents asked for help managing their retirement accounts after your father's stroke?" I nodded, pulling up the financial records on my computer screen. "When Dad had his mild stroke at 67, both my parents panicked about managing their investments. Mom begged me to help them reorganize their savings into high-yield accounts that would grow more effectively. I had transferred their money into carefully selected investment portfolios, setting up the accounts with all 3 names for emergency access. Eleanor Robert and Jason Henderson were listed as co-owners on accounts that originally held $400,000. As I reviewed the current statements, my blood ran cold. Through careful investment strategies and market growth, those accounts now contained nearly $800,000. My parents had no idea their retirement fund had nearly doubled under my management. I had planned to surprise them with the good news at our next family meeting, but Eleanor's announcement tonight changed everything. "Sarah, look at this," I said, turning the computer screen toward her. "Mom doesn't even know how much money they actually have. She's promising Catherine $200,000, but she's sitting on almost 4 times that amount." Sarah studied the numbers, her brow furrowing with concern. "Have you told them about the growth? I've been sending quarterly reports, but you know Mom never reads financial documents. She just files them away and assumes everything stays the same." I scrolled through my email history, finding copies of every report I had sent. Here's the real problem, though. Look at the beneficiary information. The account details revealed something that made my stomach drop. Eleanor had never told Robert about her promise to Catherine. According to the notes I kept on our family conversations, Robert believed they were planning to give both sets of grandchildren equal educational support. He had specifically mentioned wanting to help Marcus and Tyler achieve their dreams, praising Marcus's academic dedication and Tyler's creative talents. She's been manipulating both of us. I realized the full scope of her deception becoming clear. Dad thinks he's supporting all 4 grandchildren equally. Mom is planning to secretly transfer money to Catherine, while telling Dad it's for general family expenses. Sarah reached across the desk and took my hand. Jason, this isn't just about money anymore. This is about your mother deliberately driving a wedge between you and your father, and between the cousins who should be supporting each other. I spent the rest of that sleepless night staring at the ceiling, listening to Sarah's peaceful breathing, while my mind raced through possibilities and implications. Down the hall, I could hear Marcus still awake, probably studying even harder, now that he believed his grandparents considered him unworthy of educational investment. The sound of his turning pages filled me with a protective rage I had never experienced before. By morning, I had made a decision that would change our family forever. But first, I needed to understand the full extent of Eleanor's manipulation and Catherine's desperation. Something about this situation felt orchestrated, like Eleanor had been planning this favoritism for longer than just the college conversation. I needed answers before I could decide how to protect my family from whatever game my mother was playing. Sarah found me in the kitchen at 5:30 the next morning, already dressed and drinking my second cup of coffee. She wrapped her bathrobe tighter against the October chill and studied my face with the concerned expression I knew so well from our 15 years of marriage. "You've been up all night planning something," she said, settling into the chair beside me at our breakfast table. "I can see those wheels turning in your head. I need to understand what's really happening here," I said, showing her the notes I had been making. "This doesn't feel like a spontaneous decision from Mom. Catherine and David live in that massive house in Riverside Estates. Their daughter goes to private school. They drive luxury cars. Why would they need our parents' retirement money for college when David's real estate business has been so successful?" Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. Something feels off about their desperation for this money. When Catherine called yesterday after dinner, she was almost aggressive about it. I had access to professional databases through my financial planning practice that allowed me to research business records and property information. It wasn't intrusive or illegal, just public information that helped me understand clients' full financial pictures. If Catherine and David were in financial trouble, there would be evidence in the public records. What I discovered over the next 2 hours shocked me to my core. David's real estate development company, Riverside Holdings LLC, had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection 6 months earlier. Their creditors included 3 major banks, 2 construction companies, and the Internal Revenue Service. The company owed over $2.3 million in defaulted loans and unpaid taxes. But the personal financial situation was even worse. The mortgage on their Riverside Estates mansion was 4 months behind, with foreclosure proceedings scheduled to begin within 60 days. Jessica's private academy tuition was 3 months overdue, totaling nearly $18,000 in unpaid fees. Their credit card debt exceeded $150,000 across 7 different accounts. Catherine and David had been living an elaborate lie for over a year, maintaining their wealthy lifestyle while drowning in debt they couldn't pay. The college money wasn't for Jessica's future. It was to keep their heads above water long enough to avoid complete financial collapse. Armed with this information, I decided to meet with my father alone. Robert agreed to have coffee with me at Sunrise Diner downtown, a place we used to go when I was in high school, and needed advice about college applications or career decisions. Dad looked older than his 72 years as he slid into the booth across from me. His hair had gone completely gray since his stroke, and he moved more slowly, but his mind remained sharp. I had always respected his quiet wisdom and straightforward approach to life. "Son, I need to apologize for what happened at dinner," he began before I could speak. "Your mother's announcement caught me completely off guard. We never discussed giving money only to Catherine's children." "Dad, what exactly did Mom tell you about the education fund?" Robert stirred sugar into his coffee, his expression troubled. "She said you had refused to help with any grandchildren's college expenses. She claimed you told her that Marcus and Tyler weren't college material, and that trade schools would be more appropriate for them. The lies hit me like physical blows. Dad, that's not remotely true. You know how proud I am of the boys. Marcus has the highest GPA in his class, and Tyler's creative talents are extraordinary. I've been planning their college funds since they were born." "I was confused because that didn't sound like you at all," Robert admitted. "But Eleanor showed me text messages where you supposedly said those things. She said you were too proud to admit your boys needed different paths than Jessica." "Dad, I never sent any messages like that. Can you show me what she showed you?" Robert pulled out his phone and scrolled through his messages with Eleanor. What I saw made my blood boil with rage. Eleanor had created fake screenshots of text conversations that never happened, using them to turn my father against me, while positioning herself as the reasonable mediator trying to keep peace in the family. But there was more. Robert showed me additional messages where Eleanor claimed I had been stealing money from their retirement accounts to fund my business expansion. She had told him I was using their savings as unauthorized loans, planning to pay them back slowly, while keeping the investment profits for myself. "Dad, I need to show you something," I said, pulling out my laptop and accessing the secure financial portal. "These are your actual account balances and transaction histories." Robert's eyes widened as he saw the numbers. $800,000? How is that possible? Your original $400,000 has grown through careful investment strategies. I've never taken a penny. In fact, I've been managing these accounts for free as a family service, when I usually charge clients a 2% annual fee for this level of management. Eleanor told me we had lost money in the market crashes. Robert said, his voice growing angry. She said that's why we needed to be careful about college expenses. I showed him every quarterly report I had sent, every email I had written, explaining the investment strategies and growth patterns. Robert's face grew red with anger and embarrassment as he realized the extent of Eleanor's deception. "Son, I owe you a tremendous apology. Your mother has been lying to me about everything. Dad, there's something else you need to know." I shared the public records about Catherine and David's bankruptcy, their foreclosure proceedings, and their massive debt. The college money isn't for education. Catherine needs it to avoid losing everything. Robert stared at the documents in stunned silence for several minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a sadness I had never heard before. "Your mother has been playing us all against each other. She's been lying to you about me, lying to me about you, and manipulating this whole situation to help Catherine without anyone realizing what's really happening. Dad, I need to tell you something else. As co-owner on those accounts, I have legal authority to protect the money from unauthorized transfers. Eleanor has been scheduling meetings with lawyers to remove me from the accounts and transfer everything to Catherine." Robert's jaw tightened with determination. "Jason, I want you to do whatever you think is necessary to protect our family's financial security. Your mother has betrayed my trust, and I won't let her destroy our grandchildren's futures with her lies and manipulation." As we left the diner, Robert made a decision that surprised me. "I'm going to confront Eleanor tonight about her lies. It's time for the truth to come out regardless of the consequences." But neither of us realized that Eleanor had already set her final plan in motion. And we were running out of time to stop her from stealing everything our family had worked decades to build. That night, I sat in Marcus's room, watching him study calculus at his desk, completely absorbed in solving complex equations that would have challenged college sophomores. The sight of my 16-year-old son pushing himself even harder because he believed his grandmother considered him worthless filled me with a protective fury I had never experienced as a father. "Hi, Dad. I've been thinking about what Grandma said." Marcus spoke without looking up from his textbook. "Maybe she's right. Maybe I should focus on practical skills instead of dreaming about aerospace engineering." "Marcus, look at me," I said firmly, moving to sit on his bed where I could see his face. "Your grandmother's statement has nothing to do with your abilities or potential. You're one of the brightest students I've ever known, and your dreams of working for NASA or SpaceX are absolutely achievable." Tyler appeared in the doorway holding his video camera and looking more determined than defeated. "Dad, I want to make a film about what happened tonight. Not to embarrass anyone, but to show how family favoritism affects kids. Maybe it could help other families avoid this kind of hurt." Looking at both my sons, I realized that Eleanor's cruelty had revealed something powerful about their characters. Instead of giving up, Marcus was working harder. Instead of sulking, Tyler was channeling his emotions into creative expression. They were showing resilience and maturity that many adults never develop. But I also knew they shouldn't have to overcome this kind of family dysfunction alone. As their father, I had a responsibility to protect them from Eleanor's toxic manipulation and ensure they had the opportunities they deserved. The next morning, I drove to my office early and began researching the legal implications of the joint accounts. Since my name appeared on all accounts as co-owner rather than just signatory, I had full legal authority to manage the funds. Eleanor's promises to Catherine carried no legal weight without proper documentation, which I confirmed she had never created. My business partner Amanda knocked on my office door around 9 o'clock, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the concerned expression she usually reserved for clients facing major financial crises. "Jason, you look like you haven't slept in a week." "What's going on?" I explained the family situation, leaving out no details about Eleanor's manipulation and Catherine's deception. Amanda listened with growing incredulity, occasionally shaking her head at the complexity of the family dynamics. "From a legal standpoint, you're completely protected," she said after reviewing the account documentation. "But from a family standpoint, this is going to get messy quickly. Eleanor won't accept being outmaneuvered, and Catherine will probably become desperate when she realizes the money isn't coming. I know, but I can't let them steal my father's retirement security and destroy my son's futures. There has to be a way to expose their deception while protecting the innocent people in this situation." Amanda suggested I consult with our firm's legal counsel about the best way to protect the funds while maintaining ethical standards. She also recommended documenting everything in case Eleanor tried to claim financial elder abuse or manipulation. That afternoon, I met with Robert again, this time at his house, while Eleanor was at her weekly garden club meeting. He had spent the previous evening confronting Eleanor about her lies, and the conversation had not gone well. "She denied everything at first," Robert explained as we sat in his study surrounded by the law books he had collected during his career as a civil engineer. "When I showed her the evidence you provided, she became angry and accused me of choosing you over her. She said I was betraying her trust by believing your lies over her word." "How did you respond?" "I told her that documentation doesn't lie, but people do." She stormed out of the house and didn't come home until after midnight. This morning, she acted like nothing had happened, making my breakfast and talking about weekend plans as if our marriage wasn't falling apart. Robert showed me a folder of papers he had discovered in Eleanor's desk drawer while she was gone. Inside were printouts of bankruptcy attorneys' websites, loan applications using the retirement accounts as collateral, and handwritten notes about transferring money to Catherine without my knowledge. "Jason, your mother has been planning this for months. She's already taken out a $50,000 loan against our retirement accounts without my permission. If the accounts get emptied, we'll be liable for money we never borrowed." The scope of Eleanor's deception was even worse than I had imagined. She hadn't just promised money to Catherine. She had already committed to spending money that legally belonged to my father and me through the joint account structure. "Dad, I need to act quickly to protect these funds before Eleanor can do any more damage. Are you comfortable with me taking full control of the accounts until we can sort out this mess?" Son, I trust your judgment completely. Do whatever you think is best to protect our family's future. That evening, Sarah and I worked together to gather evidence of Eleanor's manipulation. Sarah had recorded several phone conversations with Eleanor over the past months where Eleanor made disparaging comments about our boys and praised Catherine's family. Since we lived in a one-party consent state, these recordings were legal and could be used as evidence if needed. We also documented Eleanor's lies through saved text messages and email correspondence. The pattern of manipulation was clear and extensive, showing deliberate efforts to turn family members against each other, while positioning herself as the innocent victim caught in the middle. But our preparation was interrupted by a phone call from Catherine that revealed the true desperation behind Eleanor's scheme. "Jason, we need to talk," Catherine said, her voice carrying an edge of barely controlled panic. "Mom told me about your threats to steal their retirement money. We can't let you destroy their financial security just because you're jealous of Jessica's achievements." "Catherine, I haven't threatened anything. I'm trying to protect Dad from financial fraud that could ruin his retirement. Don't give me that noble act. Mom showed me the evidence of how you've been stealing from their accounts to fund your business. We're not going to let you get away with elder abuse." I realized Eleanor had convinced Catherine that I was the criminal in this situation, setting up a scenario where Catherine would believe she was rescuing her parents from my manipulation. The complexity of Eleanor's lies was breathtaking and terrifying. "Catherine, those accounts have grown by $400,000 under my management. I haven't stolen anything. Mom has documentation proving otherwise. We're meeting with an attorney on Monday morning to remove you from all accounts and press charges for financial abuse. You have until Sunday night to transfer the money to Mom's control, or we're calling the police." After Catherine hung up, Sarah and I looked at each other with the understanding that we had run out of time for gradual solutions. Eleanor was planning to execute her final plan on Monday morning, using forged documents and false accusations to steal everything while framing me as the criminal. "We have to act this weekend," Sarah said quietly, "before Monday morning comes around." I spent that Friday night developing a plan that would expose Eleanor's deception while protecting my father and sons from her manipulation. But I had no idea that Eleanor had already made one critical mistake that would bring her entire scheme crashing down around her. Saturday morning arrived with October rain pattering against our kitchen windows as I prepared to execute the most difficult decision I had ever made as a son and father. Sarah sat across from me at our breakfast table, reviewing the legal documents we had prepared while Marcus and Tyler ate cereal before their weekend volunteer activities. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked, her hand resting on mine. "Once you take this step, there's no going back to the way things were." "The way things were was built on lies and manipulation," I replied, watching our sons gather their backpacks. "I won't let Eleanor destroy their futures or frame me for crimes I didn't commit." After the boys left for their Saturday morning commitments, I drove to my office and began the process of legally transferring the retirement funds to new accounts with only Robert's and my names removing Eleanor's access entirely. The process took several hours, but by Saturday afternoon, nearly $800,000 sat safely in accounts that Eleanor could not touch or manipulate. Every transaction was documented meticulously, every form signed with proper witnesses, every legal requirement satisfied completely. I knew Eleanor would likely try to claim financial abuse or theft, so I made sure my actions were beyond legal reproach, while I handled the financial protection Sarah worked on, gathering additional evidence of Eleanor's manipulation. She contacted family members who might have witnessed Eleanor's lies over the years, building a comprehensive picture of the deception that had been hidden beneath the surface of our family relationships. Robert met me at the bank on Saturday afternoon to review the new account structures and sign the necessary paperwork. His signature was steady and determined, showing none of the hesitation I might have expected from someone taking action against his wife of 45 years. "Jason, I need you to know that this isn't just about protecting money," he said as we left the bank. This is about protecting the truth and our family's integrity. Eleanor's lies have gone too far, and I won't let her destroy our relationships with her manipulation anymore. But while we were securing the finances, our sons were developing their own plan to respond to their grandmother's rejection. Unknown to us, Marcus and Tyler had been working together since Thursday night on a project that would prove their worth through actions rather than words. Marcus had spent the weekend researching scholarship opportunities at 15 universities with strong engineering programs. Instead of waiting for family money that might never come, he was writing essays about overcoming adversity and perseverance in the face of rejection. His application essays were powerful and mature, showing wisdom beyond his 16 years. Tyler was channeling his hurt into creative expression, working on a short film about family dynamics and favoritism. His project explored how children respond to unequal treatment and the strength they can find in supporting each other. The film was entering production with help from his school's media arts program. "Dad, we've been thinking about Grandma's decision," Tyler said when he came home Saturday evening. "Maybe this is an opportunity to prove that we don't need anyone's charity to achieve our dreams." "Yeah," Marcus added, showing me his scholarship research. "If Grandma doesn't believe in us, we'll show her what we're capable of earning on our own merit." Their resilience amazed me and strengthened my determination to protect them from Eleanor's toxic influence. They were learning valuable lessons about self-reliance and inner strength, but they shouldn't have to learn those lessons through family cruelty. Sunday morning brought the family gathering Eleanor had organized supposedly to address the misunderstandings about the college funding situation. She had invited aunts, uncles, and cousins planning to publicly shame me into compliance with her demands. The gathering took place at Uncle Michael's house, with about 20 family members crowded into his living room. Eleanor had positioned herself at the center of attention, surrounded by relatives who had heard her version of the story over the past few days. "Everyone, thank you for coming," Eleanor began, her voice carrying the martyred tone she used when positioning herself as a victim. "We're dealing with a very serious situation where Jason is threatening to steal his father's retirement money because he's jealous of the help we're giving Catherine's children." Several family members nodded sympathetically, clearly believing Eleanor's narrative. Aunt Patricia looked at me with disappointment, while Cousin Beth shook her head sadly. Eleanor had done her work well, turning the family against me before I could defend myself. "Jason has been manipulating his father's finances for years," Eleanor continued, "and now he's trying to prevent us from helping Jessica with college because his boys didn't get into good schools." I felt my face burning with anger and humiliation. But Sarah squeezed my hand, reminding me to stay calm and let the truth speak for itself. This was the moment we had prepared for. "Mom, before you continue, I think Dad has something he wants to say," I said, nodding to Robert. Robert stood slowly, his face grave and determined. The room fell silent as he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the folder of documents we had prepared. "Eleanor has been lying to all of you, and she's been lying to me for months." Robert said, his voice strong despite his age. "What she told you about Jason is completely false, and I have evidence to prove it." He began showing the family the forged text messages Eleanor had created, the unauthorized loan documents, and the evidence of her manipulation. As the truth emerged, the room's atmosphere shifted dramatically. "Eleanor promised Catherine money that we legally cannot give without Jason's consent since he's co-owner on our accounts," Robert explained. "She's been manipulating this entire situation to help Catherine avoid bankruptcy while making Jason look like the villain." The family members' expressions changed from sympathy for Eleanor to shock at the scope of her deception. Uncle Michael, a retired attorney, examined the forged documents and confirmed that Eleanor could face criminal charges for fraud and forgery. But Eleanor wasn't finished. As her lies were exposed and her manipulation revealed, she made one final desperate play that showed the true depth of her desperation. "You're all turning against me because you believe his lies over mine," Eleanor said, pointing at me with shaking hands. Jason has brainwashed his father and poisoned this family against me. If you can't see that, then you're all fools." The room erupted in shocked murmurs as family members realized they were seeing Eleanor's true character for the first time. Aunt Patricia stood up and walked toward the door, disgusted by Eleanor's behavior. Cousin Beth followed, shaking her head in disbelief. But the most shocking moment came when Catherine finally broke down and confessed the truth she had been hiding. "Mom, stop," Catherine said, tears streaming down her face. "Just stop lying. We already spent $50,000 we borrowed against the expected inheritance. David's company is bankrupt. We're losing the house. And Jessica's school fees are months behind. We needed that money to survive, not for college." The room fell silent as Catherine's confession revealed the real motivation behind Eleanor's scheme. This wasn't about educational opportunities or family fairness. It was about using my father's retirement savings to pay Catherine's debts while hiding the truth from everyone involved. "Eleanor took out loans using your retirement accounts as collateral." Catherine continued looking at Robert with shame and fear. "If the accounts get emptied, you'll be liable for money we already spent. Mom said Jason would never find out if we moved quickly enough." The full scope of Eleanor's criminal activity was now exposed in front of the entire family. She hadn't just made promises she couldn't keep. She had committed fraud that could destroy my father's financial security and leave him responsible for debts he never agreed to take on. Uncle Michael immediately advised Robert to contact the police and file formal complaints for forgery, fraud, and financial abuse. The family gathering that Eleanor had planned as my public humiliation had become her own exposure as a criminal who had betrayed her husband's trust and endangered his future. But even as justice began to take shape, the real consequences were just beginning to unfold for everyone involved in Eleanor's web of deception. Monday morning arrived with gray November clouds that seemed to match the somber mood hanging over our family. Eleanor had spent Sunday night at Catherine's house after the explosive family meeting, refusing to return home to face Robert's questions about her criminal behavior. I was reviewing client portfolios at my office when my phone rang at 8:45. Eleanor's name appeared on the screen, and I knew immediately that she had discovered the account changes. "What have you done?" Eleanor's voice was shrill with panic and rage. "The bank says I have no access to our accounts. They're treating me like a criminal." "Mom, you are a criminal. You forged Dad's signature on loan documents and tried to steal retirement money that doesn't belong to you. Those accounts have my name on them too. You can't just lock me out of my own money." "Actually, I can. The accounts are jointly owned and I have legal authority to protect them from fraudulent activity. Dad signed new signature cards removing your access after you betrayed his trust." Eleanor hung up without responding, but I knew this was just the beginning. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Catherine, and her voice carried a desperation that actually made me feel sorry for her despite everything that had happened. "Jason, please, we need to talk reasonably about this situation. Mom made mistakes, but David and I are going to lose everything if we don't get some help soon. Catherine, I'm sorry about your financial problems, but stealing Dad's retirement money isn't the solution. You and Mom committed serious crimes that could send you both to prison. We never meant for things to go this far. David's business failure wasn't his fault. The pandemic destroyed the real estate market, and we couldn't recover from the losses. We were just trying to survive until things got better." I could hear David's voice in the background, apparently arguing with Catherine about the phone call. Their marriage was clearly under tremendous strain, as the full extent of Eleanor's manipulation became clear. "Catherine, the money Mom promised you was never hers to give. Even if Dad wanted to help with your debts, $800,000 is his entire retirement fund. He can't risk his financial security to save you from bankruptcy." $800,000, Catherine's voice was stunned. "Mom said there was only $200,000 total." I realized Eleanor had been lying to Catherine about the account balances, just like she had been lying to everyone else. Catherine thought they were asking for a portion of a smaller retirement fund, not realizing Eleanor was planning to steal nearly everything my father had saved over 40 years of work. Mom told me you had been stealing money, and there wasn't much left, Catherine said, her voice growing angry. She said Dad was afraid to confront you because you might cut them off financially. Catherine, every penny in those accounts belongs to Dad, or came from investment growth I managed for free. I've never taken anything, and Dad knows exactly what happened to every dollar. The phone went quiet for several long moments before Catherine spoke again this time, with a voice full of dawning realization and horror. Jason, I think Mom has been lying to me about everything. She told me you refused to help with college costs because you were jealous of Jessica's achievements. She said Marcus and Tyler weren't academically gifted and that you were pushing them toward unrealistic goals. That's completely false. My boys are extraordinary students, and I'm incredibly proud of their achievements and potential. Oh God, Catherine whispered. Mom played us all against each other, didn't she? She made me think you were the enemy, while she was planning to steal from Dad. Over the next hour, Catherine and I had the most honest conversation we had shared in years. She revealed that Eleanor had been feeding her lies about our family for months, gradually building resentment and justification for taking the retirement money. Eleanor had told Catherine that I was financially struggling and jealous of their family's success. She claimed our boys were academically weak and that I was living beyond my means, trying to keep up with David's wealth. Every story was designed to make Catherine feel superior and deserving of special treatment. But Catherine also revealed something that shocked me. David had been unaware of Eleanor's manipulation and had actually been trying to find legitimate solutions to their financial problems. When he learned about the plan to take retirement money from my parents, he was disgusted by the deception and demanded they find other options. David has been talking about divorce, Catherine admitted. He says he can't trust me anymore after I went along with Mom's scheme. He's moving out this weekend and taking Jessica with him until I can prove I'm committed to honest solutions to our problems. The destruction Eleanor's manipulation had caused was spreading through our family like ripples from a stone thrown into calm water. Marriages were failing, trust was broken, and relationships that had taken decades to build were crumbling in a matter of days. But amidst all the chaos and recrimination, something beautiful was happening with our sons that reminded me why protecting them had been worth all the family drama. Marcus received his first scholarship offer that Monday afternoon, a full ride to Georgia Tech for aerospace engineering, including research opportunities and summer internships with NASA contractors. The scholarship committee specifically mentioned his essay about overcoming family adversity and his determination to succeed through merit rather than privilege. Tyler's film about family dynamics won second place in a national student competition, earning him recognition and a partial scholarship to USC's film school. His artistic vision and emotional maturity had transformed personal pain into creative achievement that opened doors to his future. Dad, we wanted to show you something, Tyler said when they came home from school that afternoon. Both boys seemed different, more confident and self-assured than they had been since the terrible dinner conversation 6 days earlier. Marcus pulled out his acceptance letter, beaming with pride and accomplishment. I got into my dream school and I earned it myself. Grandma was wrong about YouTube being good enough for me. And my film is getting attention from college admissions counselors, Tyler added. Turns out turning our pain into something positive really does make a difference. Looking at my sons, I realized they had learned something invaluable from this experience. They discovered they didn't need anyone's approval or financial support to achieve their goals. Eleanor's rejection had actually strengthened their character and motivated them to prove their worth through their own efforts. But while our family was finding strength and healing, Eleanor's world was collapsing around her as the consequences of her criminal behavior began to unfold. That evening, Robert called to tell me that the district attorney's office had agreed to pursue formal charges against Eleanor for forgery and fraud. The evidence was overwhelming, and the amounts involved made it a serious felony case that could result in significant prison time. Jason, I need you to know that I support whatever legal consequences Eleanor faces. Robert said, his voice sad but determined. What she did wasn't just wrong, it was criminal, and she needs to be held accountable for the damage she's caused. But the most surprising call came later that night from Jessica Catherine's 17-year-old daughter, who had been mostly silent during all the family drama. Her voice was mature and thoughtful, showing wisdom that reminded me why I had always been proud of her, despite her mother's behavior. Uncle Jason, I want you to know that I never wanted Grandma and Grandpa's money for college. I got accepted to community college with a plan to transfer to a state university in 2 years. I've been working part-time and saving money for tuition because I want to earn my education myself. Jessica, you're a remarkable young woman. I'm proud of your independence and work ethic. Uncle Jason, I'm also ashamed of what my mom did to you and your boys. Marcus and Tyler are amazing, and they didn't deserve to be treated like they weren't good enough. I hope we can still be cousins even though our parents are fighting. Jessica's maturity and grace in the middle of the family crisis reminded me that the next generation didn't have to repeat the mistakes and toxicity of their parents. The cousins could choose to support each other despite the adult conflicts tearing the family apart. As I went to bed that Monday night, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Eleanor's manipulation had been exposed. The money was protected, and our sons were thriving. But the cost had been enormous. Broken relationships, criminal charges, and trust that might never be fully repaired. Yet I also knew that sometimes protecting the people you love requires making difficult choices that others won't understand or forgive. Eleanor had forced this confrontation through her lies and crimes, and now everyone would have to live with the consequences of her actions. The next 2 weeks brought a whirlwind of legal proceedings, family meetings, and difficult conversations that would reshape our family permanently. Eleanor hired an attorney who advised her to accept a plea deal rather than face trial for multiple felony charges. The prosecutor's office took the case seriously due to the substantial amounts involved and clear evidence of premeditated fraud. Eleanor's lawyer explained that she could face up to 5 years in prison if convicted at trial, but a plea agreement would likely result in supervised probation, community service, and restitution payments. Robert struggled with the decision about whether to support criminal prosecution of his wife of 45 years. He spent hours talking with Uncle Michael, his pastor, and a counselor who specialized in financial abuse cases. The emotional toll was visible in his face, aging him months in just days. Jason, I keep asking myself if I'm doing the right thing, Robert said during one of our coffee meetings. She's been my partner for most of my adult life, but she betrayed everything I thought we stood for as a family. Dad Eleanor made her choices when she decided to commit fraud and manipulate everyone around her. The consequences she's facing are the result of her actions, not your decision to hold her accountable. Ultimately, Robert decided that accountability was necessary, not just for legal reasons, but to send a message that financial abuse and family manipulation wouldn't be tolerated. Eleanor accepted a plea deal requiring 18 months of supervised probation, 400 hours of community service, and restitution payments for the unauthorized loan she had taken. But the legal consequences were only part of Eleanor's reckoning. Robert filed for legal separation, not necessarily seeking divorce, but establishing clear boundaries to protect himself from any future financial manipulation. They would live separately, while Eleanor completed her probation and demonstrated genuine change in her behavior. Catherine faced her own consequences as the full scope of the financial crisis became clear. David followed through on his threat of separation, taking Jessica to live with his parents, while Catherine sought counseling for her role in Eleanor's scheme. I enabled Mom's manipulation because it benefited me, Catherine admitted during a family meeting at Uncle Michael's house. I wanted to believe Jason was the bad guy because it made me feel justified in taking money that wasn't mine. Catherine had to take her first job in 20 years working retail at a department store to contribute to household expenses while living with Eleanor in a small apartment. The humbling experience of working for minimum wage began teaching her lessons about self-reliance and the value of honest work. But Catherine also began attending financial counseling and therapy to understand how her sense of entitlement had contributed to the family's destruction. Her counselor helped her recognize patterns of manipulation and dependency that had shaped her relationship with Eleanor for decades. I realized that Mom always rescued me from consequences, starting when I was a teenager. Catherine explained to me during one of our reconciliation conversations. I never learned to solve problems myself because Mom would always fix things for me, usually by manipulating someone else. Meanwhile, our sons continued to flourish in ways that amazed and inspired me. Marcus received 2 additional scholarship offers and chose Georgia Tech with excitement about their aerospace engineering program. His essays about overcoming adversity had impressed admissions counselors who saw potential for leadership and resilience. Tyler won several more film competitions, and his documentary about family dynamics caught the attention of a producer who offered him a summer internship with a documentary film company. His ability to transform personal pain into artistic expression showed emotional maturity beyond his 15 years. "Dad, we've been thinking about forgiveness," Marcus said one evening as we worked on college application paperwork. "Not because Grandma deserves it, but because holding on to anger hurts us more than it hurts her." "Yeah," Tyler added. "Our film teacher says that forgiveness doesn't mean accepting bad treatment. It means choosing not to let other people's mistakes define our futures." Their wisdom humbled me and reminded me why protecting them from Eleanor's toxicity had been worth all the family conflict. They were learning to set healthy boundaries while maintaining their capacity for compassion and growth. Robert surprised everyone by thriving in his new independence. He moved into a senior living community, where he made friends with other residents and started a woodworking hobby he had abandoned decades earlier. For the first time since his stroke, he seemed energetic and optimistic about his future. "Jason, I feel like I've been freed from a prison I didn't even realize I was in," Robert told me during one of our weekly lunch meetings. "Eleanor's need to control everything had been suffocating me for years. I just accepted it as normal marriage dynamics." Robert also began building stronger relationships with all his grandchildren, including Jessica and her younger brother Kevin. Without Eleanor's manipulation, creating artificial divisions, the cousins started supporting each other's achievements and maintaining genuine friendships. But perhaps the most unexpected development came from within our local community. Word spread about how Eleanor's manipulation had almost destroyed our family's financial security, and other families began reaching out for advice about similar situations. My financial planning practice actually grew as people sought help protecting elderly relatives from financial abuse by family members. Sarah started a support group for families dealing with manipulation and toxic dynamics, providing resources and community for people facing similar challenges. "Jason, I think we can turn this painful experience into something positive by helping other families avoid what we went through," Sarah said as we prepared for another support group meeting. The crisis that could have destroyed our family had instead become an opportunity to help others while strengthening our own relationships and values. But Eleanor's story wasn't over, and her final challenge would test our commitment to both justice and compassion. 3 months into her probation, Eleanor's attorney requested a psychological evaluation that revealed early-stage dementia. The diagnosis explained some of her increasingly irrational behavior, though it didn't excuse the deliberate manipulation and fraud she had committed over many months. The medical revelation forced our family to confront difficult questions about accountability, mental health, and forgiveness. Robert struggled with guilt about pursuing criminal charges against someone who might have been mentally ill during some of her worst behavior. "Dad, dementia doesn't develop overnight," I reminded him during a particularly difficult conversation. "Mom's pattern of favoritism and manipulation goes back years, long before any medical condition could have affected her judgment." Uncle Michael, with his legal background, helped us understand that many people with early dementia retain capacity for planning and decision-making while experiencing changes in judgment and impulse control. Eleanor's actions showed deliberate planning over months, suggesting her manipulative behavior was intentional rather than purely medical. But the diagnosis did change our approach to her care and supervision. Instead of simple probation, Eleanor entered a supervised care facility where she could receive treatment for her condition while completing community service requirements. The family's final challenge was deciding how to maintain relationships with Eleanor while protecting everyone from future manipulation. Robert chose to continue visiting while maintaining separate finances and living arrangements. The rest of us developed individual boundaries based on our comfort levels and Eleanor's behavior. As I reflected on everything our family had endured, I realized that Eleanor's manipulation had revealed both the worst and best aspects of human nature. Her lies and selfishness had caused tremendous pain, but they had also brought out strength, resilience, and wisdom in people who refused to let toxicity define their futures. 6 months later, I stood in the audience at Marcus's high school graduation, watching my son cross the stage. As valedictorian, with a full scholarship to Georgia Tech and research opportunities that would launch his aerospace engineering career. Beside me, Sarah wiped away tears of pride, while Tyler filmed the ceremony for a documentary about educational achievement despite family challenges. Robert sat next to us beaming with grandfather's pride and wearing a suit he had tailored specifically for this celebration. Behind us, Jessica sat with David, who had reconciled with Catherine after months of counseling and rebuilding trust. Catherine worked a second job to afford the dress she wore to support her nephew's achievement. Eleanor watched from a supervised care facility via video call, her dementia progressing, but her awareness clear enough to recognize the grandson, whose potential she had once dismissed. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that Marcus was achieving everything she had claimed he couldn't accomplish. Ladies and gentlemen, our valedictorian Marcus Henderson, the principal announced, who will be attending Georgia Tech in the fall, with the highest scholarship award in our school's history. Marcus's speech was gracious and inspiring, thanking his parents' grandfather and even acknowledging the family challenges that had taught him resilience and determination. He never mentioned Eleanor's rejection specifically, but spoke beautifully about proving yourself through effort rather than seeking others' approval. After the ceremony, our extended family gathered for dinner at Uncle Michael's house. The group was smaller than our traditional gatherings, but the relationships were stronger and more honest than they had been in years. "Marcus, I owe you an apology that's long overdue," Catherine said, approaching my son with tears in her eyes. "Your grandmother and I were wrong about your potential, and I'm sorry you had to overcome our doubts to achieve your dreams." "Aunt Catherine, I learned something important from that experience." Marcus replied with maturity that amazed everyone present. "Other people's opinions about my abilities don't define what I can accomplish. In some ways, being underestimated motivated me to work even harder." Tyler announced that his documentary about family dynamics and educational achievement had been selected for a National Student Film Festival. The project had evolved into a powerful exploration of how young people can overcome adult toxicity and family conflict to pursue their goals. "The film isn't about revenge or exposing anyone," Tyler explained to the family. "It's about showing other teenagers that family problems don't have to limit their futures if they're willing to work for what they want." Robert had been working with Uncle Michael to establish a legitimate educational trust fund for all 4 grandchildren managed by an independent trustee with clear guidelines and equal treatment. The fund would support college expenses, trade school training, or other educational goals based on each child's interests and abilities. "I want to make sure all my grandchildren have opportunities to pursue their dreams without family politics or manipulation affecting their futures," Robert announced during dinner. "This fund will be managed fairly and transparently with no favoritism or hidden agendas." Jessica had transferred to a state university with a scholarship for academic achievement and community service. She was studying business administration with plans to help nonprofits manage their finances more effectively. Kevin, Catherine's younger son, was excelling in high school and planning to pursue engineering like his cousin Marcus. The cousins had developed strong friendships despite their parents' conflicts, supporting each other's achievements and maintaining relationships that transcended adult drama. They had learned to separate their own futures from their parents' mistakes. David's real estate business had recovered slowly through honest work and conservative growth strategies. He and Catherine had rebuilt their marriage through counseling and commitment to transparent communication. Catherine's retail job had taught her valuable lessons about work ethic and financial responsibility. I spent 20 years assuming I deserved special treatment because I married well. Catherine reflected during a private conversation with Sarah and me. Working for minimum wage taught me to respect people who earn their living through honest labor. Eleanor's condition had stabilized with proper medical care, though she required supervision to prevent future financial manipulation or inappropriate decisions. Robert visited weekly, maintaining their relationship while protecting himself and others from potential harm. The legal consequences had been completed successfully. Eleanor finished her community service helping senior citizens with tax preparation, ironically, using her manipulation skills positively by advocating for elderly people dealing with complex financial situations. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in our family's communication patterns. We had learned to address conflicts directly rather than allowing manipulation or favoritism to fester beneath the surface. Regular family meetings included honest discussions about problems and transparent decision-making. My financial planning practice had grown significantly as word spread about my expertise in protecting families from financial abuse and manipulation. I frequently spoke at seminars about recognizing warning signs of elder abuse and maintaining healthy family financial boundaries. Sarah's support group had helped dozens of families navigate toxic relationship dynamics and manipulation tactics. She was developing a curriculum for community education about recognizing and responding to family financial abuse. Jason. I've been thinking about the lessons we learned from this experience, Sarah said as we walked through our neighborhood on a warm spring evening. The crisis forced us to recognize toxic patterns we had been accepting as normal family dynamics. The most important lesson for me was that protecting the people you love sometimes requires making difficult decisions that others won't understand, I replied. Eleanor forced this confrontation through her choices, but we had to decide whether to enable her behavior or hold her accountable. As we reflected on our family's journey from crisis to healing, I realized that Eleanor's manipulation had inadvertently created opportunities for growth and strength that might never have developed otherwise. Our sons learned resilience and self-reliance. Our marriage deepened through facing challenges together. Robert discovered independence he had lost decades earlier. The money that Eleanor tried to steal remained safely invested, growing steadily under careful management while supporting educational opportunities for all grandchildren equally. The account that had started at $400,000 now approached $1 million through continued growth and responsible oversight. But the true victory wasn't financial. It was seeing our family choose honesty over manipulation, merit over favoritism, and healthy boundaries over toxic enabling. We had learned that blood relationships don't automatically deserve loyalty when they become destructive to the people we're meant to protect. Standing in our backyard that evening, watching Marcus and Tyler work together on Tyler's next film project, while Robert taught Jessica woodworking techniques, I felt profound gratitude for the strength our family had discovered through adversity. Eleanor's attempt to favor Catherine's children over ours had backfired completely. All 4 grandchildren were thriving, supporting each other, and pursuing their dreams through merit and hard work, rather than manipulation and entitlement. The cousins had learned to value achievement and character over family politics and financial advantages. "Dad, we have something to show you." Tyler called from across the yard where he and Marcus had been working on a special project. They presented a photo collage documenting their achievements over the past year. Scholarship letters, award certificates, college acceptance notifications, and pictures from various competitions and ceremonies. At the center was a quote they had chosen together. "Family isn't about blood. It's about who chooses to stand by you when times get tough. Looking at my sons and their remarkable resilience, I understood that the greatest gift we could give them wasn't money or protection from every difficulty. It was teaching them to recognize toxic behavior, maintain their values under pressure, and support each other through challenges while pursuing their individual dreams. The account transfer that had started this entire crisis had protected more than just retirement savings. It had protected our family's future from manipulation, favoritism, and the kind of toxicity that destroys relationships across generations. Eleanor's question of whether our boys could learn from YouTube had been answered definitively. They had learned far more valuable lessons about character resilience and self-worth than any online videos could teach. And those lessons would serve them well throughout their lives, regardless of what challenges they might face. As we gathered around our dinner table that night holding hands for grace before our meal, I felt peace knowing we had chosen the difficult path of truth and accountability over the easy path of enabling and denial. Have you ever had to make tough choices to protect your family from manipulation, even when it meant confronting people you love? How do you think children learn resilience when faced with unfair treatment from family members? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else facing similar challenges. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others who might benefit from understanding how families can overcome toxic dynamics through honesty and mutual support. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about real families finding strength through difficult times. Thank you for taking this journey with our family, and I hope you found inspiration in our story of choosing truth over manipulation and merit over favoritism. Remember, your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by the character you show when facing life's challenges. Here's to building stronger, healthier families based on genuine love and respect, rather than manipulation and control.